of our circle hosts have been a part of the TED community for a while. They know you well. Others only know you as the passionate voice behind our TED Circles animation, so it is great to have you here. I'm really curious to hear where your passion for small group gatherings began and why you think it's an important format for TED to offer now.
Really, the best way to watch a TED Talk is in company with other people. When we first put TED on the internet in 2006, we were worried that no one would ever watch them online in that sort of solo experience, because all of our experience was of TED, talks being shared with a group of people, and it was the discussion after that mattered as much as the talk itself. Ideas aren't these sort of clean, sort of perfectly encapsulated things that can land, go out from a stage and land in people's minds. They actually want to be critiqued and tweaked and improved on sometimes and shared with other people. That's how they come alive. And so it's kind of amazing that TED Talks have worked at all. But if you're like me, if you guys are like me, you know that just trying to watch a TED Talk by yourself, it takes sometimes like a superhuman act of discipline. You've got all these other, odd distractions out there. Most people don't regularly watch or listen, and they sort of we want to improve ourselves, but this stuff gets in the way. So the hope is one, that people, it's just a better way. You learn so much from other people when you do it that way, and two, that it can become a habit. I just think that we're in an isolated moment in the world. We spend far too much time. I think I saw a report even today that there's more time being spent in our sort of digital communications with each other than face to face. Hello, we're throwing away some of the most important stuff that makes humans humans, and a lot of us are craving a return to that, of social connection. It's actually one thing I'd love to hear more of from you guys, that sort of feeling of getting to sit down with people with something as intimate and powerful as listening to an idea together. I think that matters. Anyway, so lots and lots and lots of reasons.
Incredible. And I understand that you had people over to your home to host your own circle. So I'd love to hear your experience in doing that. That was earlier this summer. Chris invited some TED staff. So he doesn't just talk the talk, he also walks the walk.
Yeah, so 15 people came around to my home. We watched a talk by Anil Seth on consciousness, which happens to be a topic I'm interested in. And I was just curious how others would react to it. And even just sitting there, rewatching a talk I already knew was actually in the company of other people, was a powerful experience for me. Just looking at people's faces, looking at the sort of the concentration, the impact, the moments of laughter, and so forth. I found that exciting. The conversation was amazing afterwards, and it felt really special to me. I was brought up religious. And a huge part of my childhood was spent in these sort of, never mind going to church twice on a Sunday, like the weekly Bible study or prayer meeting when people would gather around, and I didn't always like those meetings, but I liked the social connection of them. There's something super powerful about that, of a dozen people meeting in a home. And weirdly, some of this resonated with that wow, this is just a powerful social thing that can happen. So I don't know. We had an exciting conversation. We were looking for aha moments in the talk and challenging moments and what we would do with the ideas. And suddenly 90 minutes had flown by, and it was like, wow, how did that happen? So I loved it, and it made me really hopeful for this program.
I can plus one that. I was one of the guests, and it was a great opportunity to speak with colleagues that we're in the office with all of the time, but don't necessarily have time to talk about other things outside of work. And shifting into all of the lessons and the nuggets that you've learned from launching TEDx, launching TED Translators, launching TED Ed, global grassroots communities, what are things that you would like to pay forward, lessons learned that we can keep in mind and have more hindsight and foresight?
I mean, overwhelmingly, the main lesson is bring in other people, trust them, empower them, allow people to co-create with you. I mean, every single time TED has taken a risk and given something away that is important to us, we've been amazed at what comes back, whether it was giving away the talks initially and seeing the response from people, the fact that translators around the world said, hey, we'd like to bring TED to our community, will you let us translate them for free? And we're like, for free? And you all want to do this? And suddenly TED gets translated into 100 languages. It's kind of amazing. It was because of giving the talks away. TEDx is an astonishing phenomenon. You know, there's some risk in giving away your brand, but the uses that people made of it, the innovation that they did, and the explosion of TED's footprint around the world because of the passion and the love and the ingenuity and the hard work of so many people, tens of thousands of people around the world. It took our breath away, and it's made TED far better than it could ever be. Some of the TED Talks that are coming out are as good or better than anything we can do ourselves. And so yes, you take a risk, you let people do something and be astonished. And so I guess the hope here is, and honestly, I've already seen thrilling snippets of this, that by giving you guys the chance to host a circle and seeing the imagination and the feedback from that, it makes me really, really, really excited about the potential of this.
Yeah, it's very memorable. We'll be trusting our hosts and asking you to do the same and trust your community. Let the circles continue, literally. Thinking ahead, 5 years from now, what would be your hopes and dreams for our program?
First of all, there's no known agenda for it. Like, you guys are co-creators in this. You know probably more than I do at the moment about what the real potential of this, because you've done it. So I would say we want to learn from you. We want to get your feedback, and we want to amplify the best of what is working here. But I mean, some of the things that I hope will happen, I hope that a lot more people just decide that this is a great way both to watch a TED Talk and to bring together people. The world is at a point where we're divided from each other. A lot of the time we're not talking to each other. We're certainly not listening to each other. We're talking at each other. It is a tragedy, and where the world desperately needs ways in which people can come together. So the instances of people saying, I met people I don't normally meet with. I met strangers and I learned from them, or I was willing to listen to them. That is unbelievably exciting. So if that could be part of this, that would be amazing. If there are signs that this starts going viral and we go from a few hundred to a few thousand and maybe even a few tens of thousands of these, and who knows, that would be amazing. And then the third piece, which is kind of an unknown, is what happens when you have thousands of people around the world thinking about the same idea at the same moment? Can their thoughts connect with each other in a way that is powerful? If you put yourself in the view of a speaker, right? You come to TED, you give a talk, gets recorded, you put it out there. Suddenly you find that there's a week or a month where your talk is being listened to all around the world at the same moment. I mean, wow, that strikes me as an interesting possibility space. We don't know what could come out of that, but it's definitely exciting. But the main thing I would say is you tell us what this could be. If you have valued the experience, we want to learn from you. I mean, I view everyone here as a hero for taking part in this and for being willing to risk the time. Where might this go? Can't wait to find out from you.
Wonderful. And help us see where TED Circles fits within the fabric of TED's complete ecosystem. New program, but where does it fit?
So you can absolutely think of TED as this interconnecting group of communities that do different things. We have a group of fellows, we have a group of translators who do their thing. we obviously have the TEDx community, and then we have this group, and there may be intersections between all of those. In principle, this could become TED's biggest community. I mean, it's compared with putting on a TEDx event, it's a much lighter load than that. And it, in principle, once the kinks are ironed out, it should be possible to happen regularly. I mean, that in a way is a dream of mine, that, you know, humans go on habits. And if a TED Circle is something you go to every month, maybe every week, you know, there's a weekly rhythm to a lot of things that really matter to people, including things like book clubs, including in religious circles, things like, you know, a Bible study or something like that. So a weekly rhythm could be amazing. And so the thought of this becoming this group of connectors and curators and discussers around the world who are bringing friends, neighbors, and others together. Wow, that could be a truly incredible community.
And as you said, I remember you talking about how you would hope that guests could proactively reach out to a circle and say, I want to have that conversation. You know, are you willing to open your doors to me? Or people who are traveling could do them en route.
So that's a question I'd be eager to learn from you on. You know, can you picture a scenario where some of you are willing to say, yep, I'm willing to be listed as a sort of a circle host. If someone in town wants to come to my circle, in principle, I'm open to that possibility. I mean, there's obviously issues of trust here, issues of safety, especially if you're meeting at home. And I think we need to, you know, take that seriously and not push people into doing that if they don't want to do it, because we can't fully control the risk on that. But it's a beautiful thought that this might be a mechanism whereby people in a community who do not know each other, they find their tribe. They find other people who are willing to learn, who want to grow, and who knows what comes out of those interactions. It's possible you could dream that new friendships are made and so forth.
Wonderful. On that note, we would suggest that if you are opening your circle to others, it's been a question from many, that you start with that in a public space. It's a good way to get that started. And maybe that's kind of a nice time to segue into open Q&A from the community. We've had a few questions come in already. Again, I'll encourage you to have some vision questions. Keep it big. Dream. You have an incredible visionary to ask and learn from, and make sure that you get your questions answered about the program at large. So we've had a few come in, and I'll grab a couple extra. A couple questions around, at this scale, how will you maintain the culture and vision of TED Circles? There are potentially some lessons learned from TEDx and TED-Ed and TED Translators about how they manage their community. Is there something that you want to touch on there?
I mean, we think about rules and tools. You know, that there are, you know, with TEDx, for example, there are rules that you sign up for when you sign a license. But much more important than that are the tools that we try and offer, which is the sort of how-to. Here's all we know about trying to curate and host a good event and coach speakers and so forth. And what has always been amazing is what people do with those tools. So with doing this, there are some constraints that, you know, that will be there, but we're gonna want to learn from you. And I think the fact that these are anchored around specific talks gives you a lot of structure. It's not like we're saying, open up your home, book some speaker who we have no idea who they are. We're saying, open your home or your other, you know, venue and bring in a speaker who we already believe in, and then debate their idea. So how that debate goes, there's room for someone to take it off the rails maybe, and if they do that, probably their guests won't come back another time. I don't know. You know, I think basically, in these things, about 5 or 10% of them will go horribly wrong, but the rest will be amazing, and that's what we take comfort in.
I like that. And to add on to the second part of that question, really about keeping it feeling very personal and communal, having us scale with care is very much a priority. Keeping those face-to-face opportunities for hosts to get together, for our team, TED Circles team, as it grows to know the hosts, it is a key priority for the host experience to be as strong as possible, and also for the guest experience to be as strong as possible. And really core to that is feeling known and feeling seen. We want to know what's happening in your circles. We want to see your circles. So please share with us, because the more you share, the more we can respond to and really continue that feedback.
Yeah.
We'll definitely automate the things that can be automated. So that'll help with scalability. There are a couple copy-paste things I'm doing that will help as we grow and to make that in your hands. But it will always maintain that core priority that this community feel exactly that, a community that's built with each other.
So I guess that potential for you here to form community with each other, in addition to the people who are in your circle, I wouldn't underestimate that. Like, we've certainly with TEDx and with fellows, the surprise has been that the most learnings have come peer to peer, and so we just want to set it up so that you can learn from each other. We'll learn from you, and we'll do what we can to spread knowledge. But that could be really cool. And so, figure out how to connect with each other. And I guess we're going to try and empower that.
And then get out of the way, as you so often say. We have a question from Susan Price. She wants to know our biggest surprise from the circles so far. I have many. You've seen some with the photos and social media and the updates that we're able to share. Anything that really stands out to you?
I mean, as someone who's been involved in a lot of launches, just seeing, even just from those pilot numbers, seeing organic growth. If you think about this was a launch done at TED Summit where a bunch of you basically did TED a favor and said, we will agree to pilot this. Normally in that circumstance, given how busy people are during the autumn or whatever, you would expect numbers to drop off. And even if it was great, you would expect numbers to drop off a bit. The fact that there are a bunch of 10 out of 10 ratings, the fact that those numbers are actually growing, that is an incredibly promising sign.
One thing I'd add to that virality is how open the hosts were to sharing it with each other. There was never a territorial nature. People joined in August, they joined in September, and it's because hosts shared it with each other and talked about it with their networks. Very few people just happened to Google TED Circles. It came because of you guys.
Yes.
So thanks for giving it away. In the spirit of inclusivity, a host question about inviting guests. How could we be more inclusive? How can we be sure that there's diversity instead of connecting with all very similarly minded people?
Such a great question. I mean, this is where I think I would invite like 100 experiments and shared knowledge. It takes imagination and courage to figure out, how to invite people, how do I track people who have different political beliefs than me, come from a different part of town, or a different color, different religion, different class. I mean, in principle, I think this can be a hit in many cases without that, just connecting with friends and learning together. If that's what you're comfortable with, that's okay. But for some people, go for a little bit of discomfort, or the risk of it, and see if it pays off. Because the thing about this is that you're having a conversation anchored in this third point. Too many conversations, certainly about politics, you just start with some political buzzword and then it's boom, 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 and it's a sort of tedious, frustrating, angry-making, one-dimensional punch fest. If you can change the subject and talk about something else, you may hate each other politically, but maybe you both care about families or about nature, or about how to, manage a project, and you can both learn in that process. And in so doing, suddenly the sort of the intensity of the political division just moves away a bit. So I mean, I would be so excited if we start to get stories about people coming together, as a result of this. It's not an essential, but I think it's an ambition.
And kind of rattling through my Rolodex of the stories I see you all share in Slack and on social media, I know that some are posting it as a Facebook invite or even Eventbrite and emailing it out to their networks. Others are finding success by having maybe a partner organization who provides the venue, and then they invite some of their colleagues and guests, as well as the people that you can bring to the party. And so that offers some diversity, as well as online circles. I'd be remiss not to mention that. Talking about diversity of guests, there's a huge opportunity when people can come from around the world.
Which also handles the safety issue as well. The worst that can happen, you cut the connection, right?
Completely. The hosts are drawing so much inspiration from the themes and from the talks. You're our head curator. What are some of the basic principles that you keep in mind when curating for TED conference themes and session themes that we can really learn from?
I mean, the usual goal on those themes is to have them broad enough that you can encompass a bunch of different topics, but focused enough to still be interesting. Figuring out a theme for a month for TED Circles is actually a very different curation question than for an event. And I think you guys have done a great job so far of about the right level of focus. I mean, a topic like love or money or justice or whatever, like you can encompass a bunch of things in there, and there's no risk that we run out, because those, even if you repeat those a year or two later, there's just so much in those themes. So, but we should get. It'll be interesting to get feedback from others as to what are the issues that they are craving. And one thing that's key is to try to find themes that play globally. This can't just be what's top of mind for people in America or Europe. But happily, turns out that people share an awful lot of things in common.
Yes.
We all love. We all need to figure out how to manage money. We all have hopes and dreams. We all bleed and get sick. All this stuff matters. And so and this TED talks about all of it.
All of it.
Yes.
And that is what we're keeping close to heart. One of the hosts sent in a question in advance asking, how do we pick the themes? How do we pick the talks? And it's with those principles that it's universally applicable, that there are topics of interest around the world, different ages, different stages of life. And we want your feedback, because we know that what's core to having a great circle is having something great to talk about. So keep it coming. We have 2 more questions that I'd like to take, and then I think we can wrap it up. One is, how can we connect with hosts in our local area? I think that's really important, because we want you to be creating community with your guests. We also want you to feel community amongst each other. You're very like-minded and have shared values, but a lot of different life experiences. And we really hope that the online private Facebook group that we will be creating for you will enable you to do that and really take ownership of that. And the last one, the big one, what is the goal you are trying to achieve, and how do you measure success? An important one, a heavy hitter. I know what our goals are, but maybe if you elaborate in addition to the broad goal, some key takeaways for everybody to walk away with.
I mean, TED's mission is to spread ideas. Ideas aren't always best spread just with one speaker on a stage. It's not like a one-way traffic like that. It shouldn't be. We believe that this is a much richer way to spread ideas, and that they will land not just in one mind, but in the minds of a connected group of people. In the last year, TED has put more emphasis on how ideas actually turn into action. One hope I have is that at least some of these talks, in the context of a group of people hearing them and talking with each other, that sometimes the question will be asked, well, what do we do with this? Is there something we could do locally? Is there something we could work on together? Again, it's not a condition, it's not essential, but it would be incredibly exciting if it turned out that this process led to impact, led to actually the activation of ideas locally. But I think the longer-term goal is that this just unlocks potential. We're in a world that is divided, it is isolated, it is lonely, it's crazy that with all of the technological potential we have to connect, that those things are true, that technology is creating these weird, distressing side effects of provoking division sometimes, and provoking isolation even when it's supposed to be connecting us. So I would say that the deepest goal is to try to reverse those two aspects of it, to show that there is a way that technology can be used to bring people together in a way that is deeply satisfying, and in a way that builds ideas in people's minds, is empowering, is inspiring, is motivating. Whether that can happen is kind of down to you guys, but there's something incredibly hopeful, Alyssa, in what we've seen so far. I want to believe, damn it, that there is a path forward to a more hopeful, beautiful future, and that it will take people like those gathered here in this room right now, and the many circles that spawn out of your own efforts, that combined with the knowledge of some of the world's wisest, most inspiring people, delivered remotely across thousands of miles, that I think can work some magic. It's something that we will create together. I hope we can do that. And
uniting us, stretching our minds, strengthening our communities. And this is a good example of technology bringing us together. In the end, we got there hearing from our hosts, seeing all of you. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for all of the work that you do in your circles, that you've done in the pilot, and that you will continue to co-create with us going forward. And with that, a big round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
You guys are inspiring. Mm-hmm.